Begin Self-Publishing, episode 123. What's working now with Facebook ads with Azriel Ratz.
Interested in self-publishing but don't know where to start? Want to get your book onto Amazon? Want to hold your paperback book in your hands? Learn how on the Begin Self-Publishing podcast with your host, Tim Lewis.
I've seen Azriel speak about Facebook ads quite a few times, and I've also listened to him on several podcasts being interviews. He's one of the best communicators when it comes to talking about Facebook and other advertising mediums online, and he's a really superb expert in the world of Facebook advertising. Now, I know I've had somebody on to talk about Facebook advertising before, but given that this is such a popular topic, I thought I'd get another expert on to talk about Facebook ads and how appropriate they actually are for many self-publishers. I think in this interview, Azriel was actually quite clear about if you've just got one very low-value book and that's all you've got, then maybe Facebook advertising isn't the way to go unless you're using it as some kind of loss leader. Certainly writing in series, or if you've got the expectation that you're going to be writing a lot of books going forward, or you've got another product, then Facebook advertising can make tremendous sense. But on the other hand, it isn't the magic wand that maybe it was a few years ago. So anyway, let's get over to the interview. Hello, Azriel. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Tim. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, so we're going to talk about how you're using Facebook advertising at the moment. What is the biggest reason why people fail with Facebook advertising?
So to answer that question, the first thing that I would have in mind is that there are a lot of moving parts on Facebook. Step one is the actual targeting of who you want to reach. And people don't know that when you target the wrong people, even with the right message, you won't get the results you want. So unless your targeting is really nailed down, you're not going to get anything. And then on the flip side of that, you could have really great targeting, but the wrong ad creative. And then also you won't be able to get the result that you want. So I would say the biggest thing that people are missing out on is simply the large amount of testing that is necessary so that you can make sure you're getting in front of the right people with the right message. Okay.
So obviously, and we were talking a bit about this a little bit in the pre-chat, most people who are trying to advertise books, they're getting they're very low value products in general. What is the best way to try and use Facebook advertising to sell something like a book where you maybe it might sell for sort of like, say, $5 and they make $2 for each copy sold? How would you go about advertising that kind of product?
So I have a general thesis on Facebook ads that unless your total value for a single customer is at least $70, it's probably not even worth it to run the ad. So the real question you need to think about when you're selling a product where the profit is only $2 is what is my end result? What is the thing I actually want out of this book? Is it that your plan is to sell, a whole series of 20 books? Is the hope to become a famous speaker that's going to travel around the world talking about this fictional character that you created? So really you have to figure out what is it that I really want out of these ads? And then it's most likely worth it to just use the book as a loss leader. Just say, I'm going to spend my $5. I'm lucky if I'll sell the book for $5. I'm lucky if I can even break even with it. But at least I know that I'm getting one step closer to getting this person to recognize me as a famous author, to get, maybe get to speak at a bookstore, maybe get to speak at a conference on writing fiction books. So really, the actual sale of the book to me is much less important than what the actual end goal is. And if your end goal is to sell a bunch of books, so then create, all of those books over time, use the book, the ebook as a lead generation tool, get as many people on an email list so that they know when book 2 comes out, when book 3 comes out, when book 4 comes out. And then when you've spent the time and written your 10-volume series of this fictional world, now you can turn around and sell it for a serious amount of profit as opposed to the single book that you are barely making any sort of profit on.
Yeah. I mean, there was a 20 books to 50K conference, which is about self-publishing. I went to, and the people who were using Facebook advertising, they had 10, 12 books. So it was kind of like, yeah, they were selling the first book, but they were expecting like a certain amount of read through. And it's, yeah, you're right. You have to have a lot of volume in terms of potential, what other people are doing afterwards.
But what's great about that is that with Facebook, you can know exactly where someone is in your funnel process. So you could say, step one is they should know that I exist as an author, right? Yeah. So you can make a few videos, maybe be on a podcast, share, whatever it is, a blog post, just so that people know you exist. Then you tell them, oh, by the way, I have a book. And you want to sell that book. This step, I kind of call it like, you want people to taste your product. So a lot of people turn around and give, the first chapter away for free. But in this case where you're only selling it for $5 anyways, so just give it away for as cheap as you can, just so that they've tasted, wow, this person's a really great author. Wow, the storyline is really fantastic. I'd love to see more of this storyline. And then you now have these people as interested, engaged leads. And then when you turn around and you have, that full series ready to go, they're ready to make that big commitment of buying a 10 volume set. Because you're on Facebook, you could actually know what they're up to in that funnel. You could say, oh, they've been to my blog already. Oh, they've watched my video already. Oh, they already like my Facebook page. Or they already signed up on my email list. Oh, they've already bought the first book. You know all those pieces of information. And then based on what you know about those people, you could then target them with exactly the right ad to move them just one more step down your marketing funnel to get them just that much closer to becoming loyal, engaged buyers in the future.
Yeah. So, I know that most people on this show have heard of the term funnel before, but that's basically the journey where people are moving closer and closer to actually buying and or becoming a super fan of your products later on. So I know you talked about this a little bit, but I know you're a fan of testing out multiple variants of adverts and targeting groups and the rest of it. What sort of process do you use in terms of doing the testing on Facebook to work out what's actually going to work?
So I would say the first most important testing is how you're actually targeting people. So why that's so important to me is because there's a lot of ways that you could target the same group of people. Let's say you want to reach women in LA with kids under the age, between the age of, let's say, 8 and 12.
Yeah.
Right. So one easy way to do that is just target LA women with the behavior of being a parent with a kid between the age of 8 and 12. Done. Finished. I ran ads then. But it's actually very likely that you could reach that same group of women if you targeted them just a little differently. Let's say we could create a list of interests like karate and arts and crafts and maybe some, TV shows that only kids watch, right? And then when you're running ads to a woman in LA between an age group of, let's say, 35 and 55, and they have interests of arts and crafts, karate, and SpongeBob SquarePants. So that is likely going to be the same overlap group as someone who is parent between the age of 8 and 12.
Yeah.
And by running those two ad audiences in two separate ad sets against each other, you could actually figure out ways to target the same exact people for likely a much less price. So I would say testing on the audience level is what's the first step of figuring out how to save significant amount of money. And just simply taking all of the audiences you already have and targeting them in separate ad sets. So if you already have a Facebook page, great. People that like your Facebook. You already have a website that people visit in a separate ad set, the website visitors. You have an email list in a separate ad set, the email subscribers. So essentially you're creating a separate ad set for each audience, and that will allow you to actually learn which audiences are the most powerful. Is it lookalike audiences of purchasers, or is it a group of interests that I created based on things I know about the people that are buying my book?
Would that be running the same adverts in all of those ad sets then?
Same exact ads in each ad set, because when you're first starting and you have a low amount of money to spend, but creating hundreds of ads, which is something I do think is worthwhile to do, and I can explain later.
Yeah.
If you're not spending a significant amount of money and your first question is, who is my audience that works? I would first focus on that question. What's the best way for me to reach the best people?
Yeah.
Because that's where you're going to be saving a lot of money. Like you could literally take the same audience and just talk to them, target them in a different way and save $5 cost for 1,000 impressions. That's a huge amount of money. But even if you slightly tweak your video or slightly make your ad copy a little better, you're not going to save $5 an impression. You're going to save maybe a couple cents here and there. And then on the grand scheme of things, that'll save you a lot of money. But unless you've done the work of actually figuring out the best possible way to target your audience, you're likely not going to get the best results you can.
Yeah. And do you ever get anybody who suffers from the problem they don't really know who their audience is? I mean, you're kind of there, you're picking like a very distinct group of like women in LA with children between 8 and 12. But if somebody really doesn't know that well what they should be targeting, how do you deal with that situation? Is that more that they should just be going back sort of looking at various things, or is there a systematic approach to kind of working out what the audience should be?
Well, the real question you need to ask yourself is, why did I make this product?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to make a product and then go, well, who would buy this? What I want to do is I want to have a problem that people have, solve the problem, and then give the solution to those people who have the problem. And the audience is creating it. Well, the audience existed already. I already knew who would, in theory, want my product, because I only developed the product so that I could sell it to these people.
Yeah.
So if you have no idea who your audience is, so the first question you want to ask is, I put money into making this thing. What problem did I solve?
Yeah.
And then who would want this solution? That's how you create your audience. And then you just say, the problem I'm solving is that there are really no good dragon time traveling, fiction books. There aren't any good ones, right? There aren't enough dragon time traveling fiction books, right? So that's my problem. So now the question is, what type of person wants to read a dragon time traveling fiction book? And then you kind of just break it down like, I have a list of different authors that write a lot about dragons, and I have a lot of authors that write a lot about time travel. So people who would be interested in these two big name authors might be interested in the mix of dragons and time traveling. And their audiences might be a great potential targeting to start off with for who you want to reach to sell your book that has to do with those two topics that overlap.
Yeah. Okay. So that kind of makes sense. I mean, it's kind of endemic in the world of fiction writing for people to write books and then look for the audience afterwards. So it's kind of it's almost a unique thing about. So, well, it's not that unique in online business, but it's more obvious when people create products on the online business space that have no audience. So we've talked a bit about targeting, but more generally, what kind of targeting options are working well and people should be making use of? We've obviously talked about like custom audiences and actual targeting. What targeting options do you think most people should be gravitating towards eventually?
So if you have a limited budget on Facebook, which when I say limited, I mean you don't have $10,000 every month to spend, you should be putting 80% of your money in people that already know who you are. It is likely that you have, let's just throw a number, you have 5,000 people that like your Facebook page. It's unlikely in my mind that more than 30% of those people bought your thing.
Yeah.
So if you can't convince the 70% of people that already like your Facebook page to buy your thing, you're not going to convince a group of people who've never heard of you to buy your thing. So I want to put my resources first into building the best possible system to get the people that already know who I am. They're already coming to my website. They're already reading my blog. They're already listening to my podcast. They're already liking my Facebook page. They're already watching my videos. They're already engaging with my content. They already know who I am. I want to figure out the best way to get them to buy my product, put all of my resources in figuring out how to sell to them. Once I've built a system that works for them, which might not just be on Facebook. It might be a whole, get them on an email list, send them 3 emails, retarget them with a Google ad, send them a message on LinkedIn, show them a bunch of things on Instagram, get them to see your guest, podcast on some other website, whatever that is, the whole funnel. You built the whole thing out. Amazing. And now they actually bought. Then you say, okay, great. I was able to get my people to buy. So now how do I then reach new people to make them into people that know who I am? What do I have to tell those people who've never heard of me so that they can become just like the people I was able to sell that like my Facebook page?
Yeah.
Because if I could move people from Facebook like to buy, and I could move people from never having heard of me to become a Facebook like, by putting those two parts together, I now have someone who's never heard of me to become a Facebook like, to eventually become a buyer. And if I can figure out how to get that system to work, I could put as much money as I want and just keep on getting results over and over and over again. So if you put your money in the right way, if you first put 80% of your budget every month into people that already know who you are, you could then start playing games of interest and lookalikes and behavior and geographic targeting, all that other stuff. That's all nice and dandy. But if you can't sell to your own people, then who cares about all those other people?
Yeah, it's a good point. So I suppose I did send you my list of questions. So I'm going to split the next question into two, which I'm going to ask you. The original question was basically about how much people should be spending and how much they should spend learning. But let's start with how much, obviously there are shortcuts that people can take in terms of getting started on Facebook ads. Like I think you've got your Ratz Pack Media kind of group and the rest of it, and people can join that and maybe get a bit of a shortcut in terms of learning Facebook ads. But realistically, how much money would somebody need to pay to kind of learn Facebook advertising? Because people are going to make mistakes and maybe target the wrong audiences and have to do testing. How much would you say is the minimum amount of money that somebody would need to spend in terms just to become efficient learning Facebook advertising?
So when you're asking that question, are you asking it from the perspective of a business owner that wants to manage their own ads, or as someone who wants to do Facebook ads for multiple businesses?
Oh, I'm doing it as a business owner for their own ads. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to I don't think we were going to be getting into people doing it for other people at the moment.
So, I would to answer the second question, I think the answer is probably like 3 years and over $100,000.
Oh, yeah.
because you have to have seen so many different things to know how to react to different strategies. But if the question is just, I have a business, I want to become quote unquote good at Facebook ads. Can't see my air quotes here.
Yeah.
So I wanted to build up to be good enough on Facebook ads to run it myself. And you mentioned before my Facebook group, and the idea behind that group is exactly this. You want to be able to run your own ads for whatever reason it is, and you just want to make sure that you're getting pointed in the right direction. You have something like, quote, like looking over your shoulder.
Yeah.
Right? That was really the idea of my Facebook ad group, because you've never thought of different targeting options. You've never thought of different ways of rebuilding your funnel. You've never thought of this type of video that I might suggest, or something that someone else has done, or a lead ad versus a canvas ad versus a carousel ad, and all these different terms that could take literally minimum 18 to 24 months to know them all, just to know all the terms. Forget about best practices. So if your thought process is just, I want to be able to run my ads as a business and do a good enough job, right? So what do I need to know there? All I need to know is Facebook breaks your Facebook ad into 3 steps: campaign, ad set, ad. Campaign is where you choose the optimization. What do I actually want to achieve here? I want people to watch my video. Great. There's an option for that. I want them to click to my website. Amazing. There's an option for that. I want them to sign up to my webinar. Amazing. There's a choice for that. I want to download my app. Again, that's an option. That's the campaign level. Next thing is ad set. That's who am I targeting? Again, we talked about this as probably the most important part of the whole thing. If you're not reaching the right people, it doesn't matter how great and fantastic your ad is. It doesn't matter how amazingly good your website is. If you're talking to the wrong people, they're not going to buy.
Yeah.
So that's where the ad set is so important. And then the actual ad, there's not so many moving parts here on the ad. You have 3 places to put text. Above the image is 1 line. Below the image is the headline. That's a big black bold text. And then below that is the description, that smaller gray text. You only have 3 places to put text. Not so complicated. Put in 3 sentences, done. You know how to do that. And then the last thing is just, what is the creative? So in my testing over the last 6 years, images used to be something I could run ads with, but in the last year, videos have outperformed images every single time. In the last year, for every single client that I've worked with in the last year, videos have outperformed images. If you're not creating some sort of video, you're likely paying double to possibly 5 times more than you should be for this same exact ad, because it's not moving.
Yeah.
So again, creating a video is its own skill set. How do you make videos? Probably just pay someone. That's probably a better option. I have a friend who has like $300 a month, unlimited, XYZ, make you a bunch of images, and you could just make a slideshow out of that whole thing. So that part takes a little bit of practice. But again, I've created the exact strategy for what the lines of text should be. In my mind, you have 3 lines of text. That gives you 3 places to get someone to take action. So what I like to do is do 3 different things. One is address their problem. You have relationship issues. Great. So not great, but So I want to address, it's a serious problem, right? What you want to write is you want to write, fighting with your spouse, ? Or something like that. And if they're going through that problem or need to fit into that dress in time for prom because they want to lose weight. So you're addressing the problem. That's one line of text. Line 2 is sympathize with the problem, which is I feel your pain. I've been through that before. I've helped clients do exactly that, right? That's line 2. And then line 3 is acknowledge a solution, which is I don't want to sell here. I want to intrigue interest in learning more about my solution. So you want to say there is hope, or, there's something you could do, or have you ever thought maybe there could be a solution, something along that line. And those are your 3 lines of text.
Yeah.
So as long as you follow that strategy of address the problem, sympathize with the problem, and introduce a solution, you're now grabbing attention, connecting with them emotionally, and driving them to your landing page where you're going to do a much better job at explaining why they should buy your product and how it's going to give them a solution. And that's it. That's everything about Facebook ads. You're welcome. I just saved you $1,000 on your Facebook ads course. That's the whole thing. The whole thing. If you can nail that process down, why you're running this ad, who you want to reach, and connecting with them emotionally, explaining to them that there is a solution that exists, sending them to your website to get them to fulfill that solution. That's the whole thing. That's the whole, there's a line like, that's the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah.
So you have all the tools now. Can you run ads on your own? Probably. Could someone else who's an expert do it better than you? Almost definitely. But if all you're trying to do is, I want to spend this $100, $300, $500, $1,000. So if you're going to pay someone to manage your $1,000 and you're going to pay them $1,000, they're probably not going to be worth it because they have to do double as good as you. And now imagine if someone charges $2,000. They have to do 3 times better than you at just $1,000 ad spend. So unless you're spending a serious, $5,000 a month, there isn't enough room for the person to do that much better than you.
Yeah.
So as long as you understand the basic breakdown of what Facebook looks like, you understand the strategies behind testing, so you could actually find your best audience and find your best ad, then you could run ads on your own. Spend $500, What's the worst that could happen? You lose $500. That's it.
Yeah. Well, which brings me on to the second part of my last question, which was in terms of spending, how much would you say is the minimum amount a month that somebody could have useful results from Facebook advertising?
It's very hard to answer that question. If you're doing it on your own, the whole thing I just explained, you could do $5 to $10 a day. That's it. That's all you need. You have an audience. Let's say you have a Facebook page with 1,000 likes on it.
Yeah.
For $5 to $10 a day, you can reach all of those people every week. And all you have to do is just post one really great post every week and boost it for $5 to $10 a day. And everyone will see all those posts. Everyone in your entire Facebook page for $20 to $40 a month will see, a day. I'm doing that number wrong. $10 is $300. So between $150 and $300 a month, you're going to be able to talk to every single person that likes your Facebook page every single week.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic because they know who you are. They've liked your page. They've read your content before. And all you're doing is just continuing to get in front of them on a consistent basis so that when you have something to sell, you are on the top of their mind. Now, on the flip side of that, if you're planning to hire someone and you want to, build this giant strategy to find the best audiences and get the best ads and create good landing pages and make good videos and all that stuff, then unless you're spending $100 a day, it's probably not even worth your time because the amount of testing you'll need to do to find all those moving parts and figure out all those things, if you're spending under $100, it could take you 3-4 months just to figure out, this lookalike audience doesn't work. It only cost me 8 weeks to find that out because I didn't spend enough money until now to know that.
Yeah, so it's kind of a false economy in a way, isn't it? If you're trying to do it on the cheap.
Right. If you're doing it on the cheap, then take $5, take your entire existing audiences. I said that before, your email subscribers, website visitors, Facebook likes, page engagement, all those people, throw them all together into one ad set, done, and spend $10 a day. That's it. You reach everyone. And then until you can nail down exactly the process to sell to those people, don't talk to anyone else.
Yeah. So start with your super fans, turn your fans into super fans, I suppose, is probably the first thing. There's a question that occurred to me during the interview, which I think you've probably got a unique-ish, not a unique perspective because there's probably a couple of other million people in the world, but in terms of advertising outside the US and the EU. I mean, have you noticed any differences culturally in using Facebook advertising, say in like Israel, where you're from, or like Africa or Asia? Are there differences in the way that Facebook adverts work around the world?
So the answer to that is several issues. One is the actual cultural differences. So if you look at, I actually have a friend who specializes in conversion of marketing from English to Chinese.
Yeah.
And it's not just enough to translate the works, like the actual texts, but the time it takes to understand the culture between Asia and America. How people think there is a little different. The culture of how people act in China, just one example. In America, when you think of the color red, that like brings up the idea of murder and, you know, whatever, like depending on the shade of red, it could be like romance or something dramatic. Red can be a very dramatic color. But in Asia, women don't wear white wedding gowns. They wear the red wedding gowns. So red no longer means a dramatic color, but rather like what's the word I'm looking for here?
Normal? No.
Not normal, but like innocence.
Oh, yeah. So red and white are kind of switch over from a culture.
Right, exactly. Like white kind of means like pure. So that's what red means, like a pure, that the feeling that people get in China about the color red is almost entirely flipped between what the feeling is in America, in Europe and America, than what it is in China.
Yeah.
So the first step is really to understand the culture of that place. The second thing is to understand how well do they understand the language I'm targeting them in. So, for example, I've lived in Israel now for 7 years, but I'm originally from New York. So if I'm scrolling through Facebook and I see an ad in Hebrew, I have to translate the words of that ad. And I'm on Facebook. I don't have any interest in translating in my head what these words mean. That's not my job. You're not paying me enough to read your ad that it's worth it for me. So unless your ad copy is something that's so, like your ad imagery is so amazingly fantastic, I'm going to simply skip over that ad because why should I have to work? I'm on Facebook right now.
Yeah.
So the next part is making sure that the people you're targeting are willing to spend the time to read the language that is not their native tongue. So for example, in the Philippines, they don't natively speak English, but their English is good enough that if they're scrolling through Facebook, they're likely going to stop and actually read the ad because their English is that good enough for them to read it.
Yeah.
That's the next thing is the language good? And then be taking those two things and several other not as important factors, you're then going to be able to say, will the structure of my marketing funnel that is working well in some other place also work in this country?
Yeah.
And then the last part is really, really important. When you're running ads to countries that are cheaper to target, so you mentioned like African countries, Middle Eastern countries, it's much cheaper to run ads to those places because there's less competition to reach those same audiences. But if I use the wrong objective in my ad, I'm going to be running ads to the cheapest people in the most ineffective countries. So if you run like a Facebook page like campaign, and these people in general like way more pages than anyone else on earth. You know that the average person on Facebook likes just one Facebook page?
Really?
Yes, which is very little because I like probably over 500 Facebook pages.
Yeah, I'm on that.
Yeah. So if you find a group of people in the middle of Africa that like 10,000 pages on average, so their Facebook page will mean a lot less than your Facebook page, like another Facebook page like.
Yeah.
But if you ran that same ad with the same copy and the same imagery and the same everything with the same landing page, instead for conversions on leads, so Facebook's going to look through that same audience of people that you're targeting and say, oh, this group of 100,000 people have the money to spend and they're seriously interested in your offer and you've done a good job of converting the cultural differences in the ads. So those people, you'll be able to reach them for way less money. We're talking about like 10 times less than in America, UK, Europe, those types of places. And they will potentially be buyers that can make you way more money in profit than in comparison to other countries.
Yeah, but you need to do the work, don't you?
Right, right.
Okay, so I think that just about rounds up the interview. At least I think we could talk for ages if need be, but How can people find out about Azriel Ratz and the things that you do?
So I would say the best place to connect with me is on my Facebook page, Ratz Pack Media, and on, surprisingly, my LinkedIn account. Just search Azriel Ratz into LinkedIn. And between those two places, I try to post as much free content as I could possibly produce. I'm posting, between 4 and 5 videos every single week on everything, online marketing, Facebook ads, funnels, so on and so on. And I think those are the two best places.
Okay. Well, it was great to have you on the show today, Azriel.
Thank you so much for having me, Tim.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please stop by iTunes and rate and leave a review. This helps make the show more visible. For free resources, show notes, and other helpful content, join the community at beginselfpublishing.com.